All right. All right. Welcome to my first. Need to edit sound. Sorry. Can you hear me? Just make sure. All right. Um, all right. All right. So here is my first live stream discussing. Okay, good. Here's my first live stream discussing Trade of 1,000 Galaxies. And first off, I want to go over the influences or inspirations of the story. Or yes, I have a Patreon if you want to support the story. It's in the yeah. I like comments, so I'm listening. All right. If you want to support the story, just go to Patreon and it's in the link in the description below. So if you want to help out, you can do it for free. You don't have to pay for it. So you can support me. It would be great, at least supporting me completely for free. So, but I'm not going to go into spoilers. I am not. There's going to be some rules on this. No spoilers. Nothing that would go too deep in the weeds. I'm just going to go over some of the stuff, and I'm also going to share the screen, and I'm going to show you some of the stuff, and not all the stuff for that is going to go in the story. Some of it, but first off, I'm going to discuss the inspirations and the influences. So, of course, some of this that you see in my room are influences, inspirations. Some of, as you can see, there's Attack on Titan, there is Transformers, there's Lord of the Rings, and yeah, those can't reveal the present right away. Yeah, I know. I'm seeing them that way. So, and so let's go over how the influences say let's go with Attack on Titan first of all. So with Attack on Titan, the influence is that say that I was really in gravitas of the whole plot of AOT. It was a bit simple, a bit at first with the first seasons. Are you the artist for the comic? No, I'm the author. Yeah, I'm the author. I'm not the artist. I hired someone to be the artist. I couldn't draw it myself because I'm not that great at drawing, but I am the alpha and the omega of the story. So yeah. And I mean, you could ask me questions more, yeah, about yeah. So back to the inspirations. I think with nor am I, lol. So I think with AOT at first it was again it was a bit more. It was a bit, but as it rapidly got more complex as the seasons go on, to the point where, of course, ended up what it to be today. So that really influenced my sense of storytelling with the complex and nuances of, say, AOT, with how intricate and how in depth the lore is and how the story is. And so I was in awe about how autistically detailed that the story was. That how they nailed every detail down to it, especially with the info dumps. I loved how intricate with how there's this little, usually with those anime clip sides, they when after the commercials come back, they usually give some infos on only the characters, or say My Academia, for example, which I mean, it's not that My Academia doesn't have some nuances, of course. But I think that what makes AOT genius in this way is that it's about the world building, the lore, the characters, not specifically about the characters alone, not simply about the personality traits, but more about, say some little snippets of like it's also especially the mystery aspect. I was enthralled by the mystery about what was in the cellar, what was in there. And I was enamored, completely enamored by what it turned out to be. By that, it blew my mind. That plot twist, it blew my mind. It completely rocked my world in that way. So I and then I say that Dune, like, and all this, like, so attack. There's actually some, like, on my channel of videos that I did reactions to a while back when I first watched Attack on Titan. Like, so you can definitely, there's a little like breadcrumbs on my channel. You can definitely see about how I how I first reacted to Attack on Titan and how that would say influence the story. And then we get on to Dune. When I first saw Dune, I was going through something in my life, but of course it was the pandemic, everything. Okay, everyone was going through that. So with Dune, I really didn't have a first opinion on it. It was more something that was, say, in my subconscious, something that I wasn't fully aware of. But in a little way, I was aware enough to get inspiration from it. From, say, the world building tips, like with the shields and all that. And that is how, like, it's the, especially of how it reshaped how I saw Star Wars, and which implied into the story how incredible, like, Dune was, that it wasn't Star Wars, that it wasn't, that it what it so and that I found out that actually Dune came out before Star Wars. And I'm going to tell you this, that when I came up with the idea of the story, I was heavily influenced by Star Wars, heavily. So much that I want to go through everything that George Lucas went through. I wanted to understand, like, the zeitgeist of the time, what he was inspired by, the Buck Rogers. He got familiar with the movies before reading the book, funny enough. You said that Dune, you got Dune 5 for your story before you even watched Red Dune. Yes. And this was because of Star Wars. This was because I was more like trying to get the inspiration what George Lucas got for his inspiration, which Dune was one of them. Funny world. So I think, funny enough, I think even before Dune the film came out, I think I was tapping into, because Attack on Titan is a lot like Dune. So I think, given that my influence from Attack on Titan and how it translated into the story, and how I was trying to get inspired from Star Wars or George Lucas before, like how he got influenced, and then Dune the year after I came up with the idea from the story, that how that gave me the full context. And the more I found out about how Dune shaped George Lucas, is how that shaped my story. I think it was especially when I got into more philosophy, or I got into Nietzsche, I got into Dostoevsky, I got into Plato, Aristotle, and then I think it clicked when I saw Dune Part 2. It clicked. And this was like a year after Attack on Titan ended. It was, yeah, after AOT ended. And I was probably 3 years into working on the story. So on the fourth, when I saw Dune Part 2, it really clicked on me that, wow, I had no idea how much I was influenced by Dune until I saw Dune Part 2. That clicked in my mind. It was especially with after the pandemic. This was like years after it. So I got more time to Young. Oh yeah, and Young was especially influential in the story. And also Young. Also, which, funny enough, I did see the Attack on Titan Freedom Isn't What You Think It Is by Rhetoric, which is a great video. It's phenomenal, but it's not for the faint of heart. So if you're interested in philosophy, or you're interested in, like, say, the philosophy of Attack on Titan, then I highly recommend that video. But that, I digress. So it's amazing that young also, so I was not that surprised when I found out that how Dune was so influential by Young in Nietzsche also. Well, okay, more Young than Nietzsche, because I did find out that Frank Herbert was more or less not that heavily influenced by Nietzsche. It was more Young, but it is so funny about questions. 1, is Scott the artist? 2, how many issues will it be? All right. No, and the answer is for the first one, no. He's not the artist. Well, okay, half no. Yeah, half no. He's the more concept artist. He's more the yes, he's the concept artist. So he's not the illustrator though. He's not. But 2, how many issues there will be? Honestly, it's a pretty long ass story that I'm planning to do. So I think if you're asking the question, is it going to be a story or a series? Where a series is more akin to, let's say, a series is more akin to a series is more akin to this, like this story, where it's just a bunch of miscellaneous stuff, like and you have like you see that's more like that's what you call miscellaneous, like a series. There's like it's miscellaneous and it's more like a episodic story. But stories like say this Watchmen, yeah, like stories like like Batman on the Red Hood, but stories like the Watchmen, which there is no like miscellaneous stuff in it, and it's more chapter based. That's what the story's gonna be. One of these, like Watchmen. It's gonna be, I'm imagining a graphic novel like 16 issues inside. Well, this is going to be an omnibus. This is obviously, and I'm hoping to achieve with the story, it's going to go get the anime treatment or the Invincible treatment, where it's going to be adapted into a TV show series, and it's going to have like at least maybe 3 or 5 or 6 seasons worth of storytelling. Like, it would be great to get a movie. It would be great to get the full Last Attack like treatment that Aizama got, where it's a like one like the final seasons just turn into a movie. That would be phenomenal for me. That would be incredible for my story to get that treatment. But first of all, I'm trying to, start with the basics. And the reason why I don't want it to be a show, I rather it just be a comic, is more so I would like it to be a book, but I think why I chose comics, and if that's another question, then I think that if you were wondering that, then why graphic novels? Why and not TV show or not? Well, I think it's because I like the aesthetic of comic books. I like the aesthetic, especially since how I've been influenced by manga. I've been influenced, and also by anime. I love the idea that you can take page by page of a story of, say, this graphic novel, like this Batman under the Red Hood, you could take these pages and then adapt them. That's okay. Yes, that okay. Admittedly, like say, yeah, and adapt them into a movie or TV show. Sorry for the and you can adapt them exactly how the comic was made. You can adapt them, or you don't. Sometimes you can take liberties, like say in Batman on the Red Hood, that it's more. This is more of its own thing, and in this, it's they definitely have all this is not in the film. It's definitely that is why I like the flexibility, yet at the same time you can, like Invincible, take page by page and adapt. It's like seeing art come to life, essentially. That's why I love that's why I love Attack on Titan, how say a lot of these pages are completely unaltered. A lot is in the final story. That's what I absolutely adore about this kind of storytelling. That it's so I prefer it to be this way. I prefer that the manga or the comic rather, the graphic novel, get turned into the TV or movie where they are completely faithful to the source and don't deviate that much. Where you get there's a little bit of a little bit like of a different viewership experience, of course. But I mean, of course, that you would definitely say, what's the point of reading the graphic novel when you just watch the TV show or movie or anything? It doesn't there have to be differentiates between that? That's why the MCU adapts their comics into completely different stories, essentially. But that is where I see the Achilles heel. See, essentially, that yes, the final AOT movie is available to get tickets right now. I know I'm going to do that. But that is where I see the Achilles heel in that kind of storytelling. Because if you are essentially watching an entirely different story, and you're seeing it adapted, there's easy for error. There's easy for distortions or sense of differences. And I don't want that for my story. And I think with graphic novels, if anyone's going to adapt it, it's not going to be a live action film. That's unlikely. So I might get the sweet spot with having an Invincible style or a manga style, like or anime style. And I know that the comic book industry is not exactly doing well right now, with especially Marvel DC. So maybe the advantage of this story is that it's not a traditional comic book in the American style. That it's not superheroes. It is it is sci-fi, which actually, fun fact that the Alan Moore, the creator of Watchmen, he hated the fact that superheroes dominated the comic book industry. That's why in some instances of this story, he was so focused on the smaller details of like a story about seafaring, like about a castaway, that and he was just such a chore to get back to the superhero motif that was dominated the comic book industry before and now. So, given the advantage of manga with how diverse they are, and if this story does do success, maybe it can inspire the comic book industry to branch out from just superheroes. Even Invincible, a very successful TV series based on a comic book, its success is based on probably the superhero motif too, and also the series. So that, but with this series, with this comic, this graphic novel, if it gets the Invincible slash anime manga treatment, where essentially the story becomes a TV show and it's unaltered, then this series gets that sweet spot where you don't get any alters, you don't get any filters, you don't get any artistic liberties, for lack of a better word, and you get the full story in movie or TV form. You get that full treatment, and you get to see essentially the art coming to life. You can you can see it from the comic and you have it imagining in your head, and then you get to see that come to life. You get to see all the little nuances that you couldn't do in comics. You get to see all of that movement, all of that art, like living and breathing instead of in the static motion that it would. So that is the real advantage of doing this from, say, graphic novel to movie animation. And I rather animation because essentially comics are just are are rigid stopped animated books. So one step further is to bring the animation to life, is to imbue it with that sense of movement, that sense of nuance, that sense of artistic expression. So, all right, any questions? Because if you don't have any questions, I'm going to move on to sharing some of the stuff and going over it. So I will wait at least till the 21-minute. Okay. How far are you along? Are you with the story? Is it ongoing, or do you have all written planned? How far are you? Well, we have the beginning, middle, end. We have a vision out. We have, like, if you want to find out more about it, then you'll probably have to pay for Patreon, because I don't want to give this for free. So if you would have to pay up for that. But I'm gonna give you this. That yeah, we've been working on it for essentially 5 years, and we've been through a lot of trials and tribulations, and as you would say. We have some. We have a lot of rewrites. So that's what is kind of tricky with writing a story, with the beginning, middle, and end, essentially. So we have a vision for it. So we do have a full planned vision, yes, and I can assure you it's definitely better than the Disney trilogy, because if I go back to the influences, now I suggest it should go back to what I've been influenced by badly, or awkward shit and Alan Moore, because watching bad stories are more inspiring than watching good ones. Um, so I would say with the Disney trilogy is one of the huge inspirations, or bad inspirations for lack of a better word. Like, with how absolutely monumentally, idiotically not planned that they were. How they so that gave me a good, and I remember the very year 2020 when I came up with the story. That yeah, how much info can you give? I'm curious what the story is. Okay, I can only give what I've given you so far about the vision. I can only give you, say, I can go over. I will go over about the graphic novel, the art. I will explain some things, and only little. I'll go into it when I go over like some of the prototype issue. You know, that art that I have on the Trade 1000 Galaxies trailer on my channel. That is, yeah, I can only go into detail about, say, explaining the context of that prototype issue. All right, back to the bad inspirations. I would say Has-Been Hotel. Also, because I don't want it, but I would say, since I'm a big fan of Daredevil and some of my previous like lifestyle things, I think it's the matter of, say, it's that Has-Been Hotel, even though I don't like it, but it has inspired me to, since it is indie, it is completely 100% indie. And Bipsy Pop is a much powerful, or like more popular YouTuber than I am, like, and more influential and more popular, and with thousands, millions of views to her. And I only work with the scraps I have. But I digress. That to get a pilot out and get that pilot picked up and not become nothing. That is inspiring. Even if I don't like the story, that is inspiring to have that indie level stuff and then get to where you are. And also that would also Smiling Friends. But I think where Bipsy Pop, it's more with the animation. Even if you could say what you want about her writing, you can definitely tell she was very, very good at her illustrations. She's very, very well, very. She is brilliant at that. I wouldn't say she is anime level, of course not, but I would say she's very dedicated, and she earned basically everything she gotten from her, say her illustrations, her and that her ambition with those illustrations, and that is me being very generous, very. So I'd also say Avatar Last Airbender or even Star Wars and this one series, Voltron Legendary Defender, where I will tell you that there's one episode that of this show, Voltron Legendary Defender, where it was the Space Mole episode. And say I was a bit insulted about how the Empire in that show was more treated like a bunch of like a pulp mall cop and like some dumb mall cop. So that kind of got me to think about how would an empire actually take its economy seriously. And that was some of the bit that went into the Trade of Thousand Galaxies. So, like I said, is the genre like anime and a sci-fi combo? Anime is not genre; it's a medium. But yes, but it's sci-fi fantasy. I also have a term for it. It's called dark celestial, and that's what I only told you about the say the space mall with the economics and the empire, and also this. And these are it because these are breadcrumbs I'm leaving. I'm giving you this for free, and there's some good stuff to get into it, but it's not you will have to understand full context if you say paid for Patreon and you paid for the full intricacies of it. So I digress. Back to the bad inspirations. I'd say with the failure of Star Wars overall, definitely gave me that influence of how I'm going to approach, say, my story, how I'm going to, and especially with how George Lucas basically gave his story away to, I mean, even long before like Disney got there. It's George Lucas essentially had a bunch of people basically writing the story for him. I mean, you can barely tell what the story is, like what the Force is about, because there's so many people, so many interpretations that it's black noise. It's Fugazi, it's Fugazi. Hey guys, it's Fugazi, it's fairy dust. Because George Lucas is so mousy that he didn't allow he didn't like assert himself. He didn't assert himself enough. Long before Disney got there. I mean, there are that whole idea about Palpatine coming back from the dead, that was not Lucas. Or not Disney. That was all the way in the EU, an expanded universe. So I don't like how JJ plagiarisms, for example, I call him essentially the Star Wars Stilgar. I mean, I love him. I don't like him. No, I mean, I don't love. I love his insights in his rhetoric, but I don't like how overly he is to Star Wars. Like he would say that the EU is essentially a part of Disney canon. It was always in George Lucas's mind, or that he did intended or that the EU is essentially a significant part of Lucas's canon. Yeah, it is to the point where it's kind of making it so diluted that you don't know really what the hell George Lucas intended for the story to begin with. So that is very inspiring about how to manage your story or your story's universe, essentially. How to not let your own creative team do it for you, and how essentially to guide your team for your vision so nothing is lost, essentially. Nothing. And that you have a better cohesive story that will not be taken advantage of easily, rather. So that is, and I guess we'll talk about Avatar Last Airbender. Again, another copycat of Star Wars, but or for lack of a better word, another influenced, like, more to the optimism in the hero's journey, the monomyth of Star Wars, but more in the rather of the essential optimistic, like, feel good and a hopeful narrative of Star Wars that was imparted into Abbas Emperor. That's why a lot of people associate that with the original trilogy, and that's also why, again, if you bet on your story being essentially the reason or the, like, equated to someone else's success, and only for the sake of that success, which I kind of think they intended that with Star Wars, and not do it in your own. I mean, it's not that Avatar did it its own way. It's the matter, and I know that this is like opinions and matters, and that they probably didn't. But it's matter of, say, how the audience perceives it that I'm more inspired against. Like, I'm more like influenced to make sure how to get to know your audience, how to not essentially, like, cater towards, like, or let the audience, like, put you on a pedestal, essentially. How to, yeah, like, on the same level as Star Wars. And get back to Dune, I hope my story will not be put on a pedestal like Dune, like, oh, this is gonna be like, this is essentially the same feelings you get with Dune. You say, yeah, and I think it relies with how people feel about the prequel trilogy, essentially, because with, oh, the prequel trilogy sucks, it's not Star Wars, but Avatar: Airbender is Star Wars. This is more Star Wars than this, or essentially with the Disney trilogy, and therein lies that. I don't want Trade of Thousand Galaxies to be more Dune. And guess what? I think with the advantage that both me and Dune has, with Trade of Thousand Galaxies and Dune has, that you don't hate Dune. That there's not going to be a prequel trilogy. There's not going to be essentially anything that will alienate the audience to the point where you find someone else more attractive. But essentially, that it's more of a, that Dune that Trade of Thousand Galaxies will stand on its own legs, with Dune being, you can definitely see where the inspiration is, but it's not going to pander to that sense. And I think with how Dune is doing, has the advantage of, say, not having that years and decades of influence that Star Wars has. That with Dune, since it's a new franchise, and essentially you can get everything out. You can get the people to know what the story is about, and not have any distortions. No, no disappointments, no alienation. And that's what I want with Trade of Thousand Galaxies, essentially. And not the same vibes you would get from Dune, but the same success, the same well planned out, the same, essentially the same, like, competence, not the same feel good attitude, but the same level of dedication and attention to detail that Dune has. And that might seem paradoxical, but it's more on technical terms rather than emotional terms. Rather than, I'm not trying to cater to the emotions of the audience, I'm trying to get them to think in the same way that Dune, because I gained a lot of stuff from Dune, but I'm not trying to, this is again what Alan Moore, bad stuff are more inspiring than good stuff, so get more influence from the bad stuff rather than the good stuff. So essentially, and I don't think that, I mean, Dune, maybe Frank Herbert did do that, but I think that it makes me more personal if I had that approach to the story. So that is all my influences, inspirations, and I think we can now go into the comic. So, any questions before we go into it about what I just said? Any questions? All right, let's go in. Mhm. All right, here. Oh, great! It's going into. All right. Mhm. Mhm. All right, here we go. All right, all right. So here is prototype issues poster, and this will not be the definitive text. This right here will not. Right here. This is just what we have for now, essentially. It's more so this illustration was done by our commissionist, or rather our another outsourced like company, but we have teamed up with them. We're very good partners. So that, and I do not intend Bealto's hair to be this golden. It's not going to be. It's This is more, and if we're gonna go into MCU terms, if I'm gonna equate this to right now, this is in like say when Tony has like the silver Iron Man design, not so much, and more when it's formulating into the the red and gold that you associate. Hmm. Thank you very much. So again, this is not gonna be his hair, but this definitely will be his face. This will definitely, most of it is correct. It is definitely going to be essentially like this. And also it's with the little philosophy I got with essentially with how humans are such a mainstay sci-fi. Why not aliens? Why not if you want to go full imaginative, then why not have an alien for a protagonist of the story? I mean, with Star Wars, you could do that with Darth Maul or Ahsoka, but they're only like, say, side main protagonists compared to Anakin or Luke. With nothing bad about that, but but that's where I came up with the idea of Bealto should not be human. He should be or essentially like an elf from Lord of the Rings, also, or a space elf, or because you can see with the ears, like so. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna go into the next one. All right. Mm, All right. First I will. All right. So this is one of the earlier designs for essentially my version of the Stormtrooper. Of it's of course it's not going to treat them like Star Wars Stormtroopers where they're incompetent. Actually, the quite reverse. It's more essentially each one of them, like any of them, are gonna. It's more like the Harkonnens or like even General Grievous from not the prequel show, not the film ones, the Genndy Tartakovsky 2003 version. Essentially, at their best, or all of them, or they are essentially, especially in this armor at least that they're in, that they are as powerful as they are. They are in, so, and they're obviously, and it also harkened back to Star Wars with how Star Wars was influenced, like, the stormtroopers of the Empire were essentially based off of the Nazis. I decided to go even further into the Roman Empire to how how this universe is essentially this empire, the Martial Reign, are the Roman Empire if they never died out. So this is like this one is going to be more definitive. This one was just a and this is more a rough draft. This is so it's not going to be the symbol for their or for their empire, their banner, but it's not going to it's going to be different. It's going to be but it definitely is the rough idea of how yeah. So and I think we should now issue. So again, like some of the cruisers designs is more it's not exactly streamlined like it is a bit more bulky, so I intend it to be bulky, but it is definitely to what I had in mind. And so and here is so essentially this is not in the story, but it's like a prelude to what the artists were capable of, and so essentially you could definitely tell with Jabba the Hutt or the Vladimir Harkonnen that, or even the Penguin, how I had gotten influenced from into this character right here who will be definitively like this, and so and obviously with I and this is one of the like it's one of the enemy factions of say the Martial Reign. So I think so. Uh, here's the true first the first illustration they did that won us over to this to yeah, this was essentially of a previous design of what Beato did look like in our earlier designs. So like right here and right here, like yeah, like it was a previous illustrator, but until we landed on the one we have now, like so. So, and here is full coloring of essentially the Martial Reign, what we want the Legionnaire, what we want them to be colored with. And also, if we will go to the here is some of the outline for or the rough sketches for yeah. So I'm only going to show you a little bit. Like I can't like get that much in detail, but actually this is like the inner layers of it. So, all right. Any thoughts? Any thoughts besides this is really impressive? You guys should be really proud of what you accomplished. Any thoughts besides that? All right. No, I like what I see. Are you willing to go on the pay? No, I'm not gonna say that. All right. So that is, I will definitely So again, let's now get into the full context of, or at least enough of, essentially, this. It is more of my comic habit is to buy the entire collection when it's all said and done. That's what I do with graphic novels. Well, this is one of those series you will this comic graphic novel you would definitely want to do it with. So I guarantee that this is so yeah, but you could definitely. So I would, if you were to do that, I definitely recommend you do Patreon if you are to say to support it, or if you want to see the full intricacies of it. If you're not going to buy any of the first issues and wait till or unless you don't want anything spoiled, but that's just how I would recommend it. So essentially we have gotten inspired from, let's say, manga, or like it's more showing, and when it's in black and white, like we did have it right here, where we did have it right here. Like it's more showing that it's more anime influence, but when you get back to it's more like comic or graphic, not American. But you could definitely see a bit of the anime, like with the eyes. I think it's more so. Yeah, it's so I think. mm, So, and you can often tell how influential manga has been on me with these. And I will show you some of one, at least one, some of the concept art, like that Callan did. This is supposed. Oh wait, okay. I can take a look at the Patreon, but I might get in trouble. LOL. Perks of marriage. It's you could always be for free, or you don't have to do it. But this is what we intend right here that Callan did. That it would be essentially the remember the the title that we did for here. See, this is what I mean, that this is not going to be the initial font for the story. This is just a warm up. This is gonna be, and we have taken many influence from Hebrew and Japanese, like right here. Mm-hmm. All right, let me spread the word. Yeah. So yeah, and we're hoping to get an illustrated version of it. Hopefully that akin to this. So. Mm, mm. Oh, um, and I will show you one more thing that, or two more things. This is also what we thought of, like the map of the entire galaxies, the thousand galaxies, which I did a while back. Revealed this to like when It's a Gundam was saying, when can someone take back the comic book industry? Someone fill us with good stories and all that. And just heads up, my connection is bad right now. You may lose me because I'm working from home and streaming my connection. Okay. But this is essentially how we want to map out the entire universe right here. So yeah, so I think so. That is it for showing off the illustrations art, and so what do you overall think? Um, any overall thoughts? So I know there's only like essentially income. All right. Oh, actually, I think I'm gonna make a poll. Like, what are your thoughts? On this live stream? Great. Yeah. So there's the poll right there, and good, great. All right. So I think how would I want to end this off? How would I want to continue on? I think maybe what I could do is, okay, I will give you some news at least that we have been going from Image Comics and they never got back to us. And okay, I will tell you one thing about Image, that we did try to send it to them, and we went for a month. We thought we sent it to them, but our manager never sent it to them. I mean, it sent it, but it didn't actually go through at all. Like, it didn't go through. It like I mean, he sent it, but there was an error that it never was sent. So essentially we did resend it, and again we never got it back from Image. But with Dark Horse, I mean, we had a little same problem, but it was due to Christmas rush that they never got back to us. But we did send it again, and Dark Horse got back to us and said, we have received your submission. We received it. So, and I heard from one of my illustrators, or the project manager of the Illustrators, that yeah, you don't have to but one idea. You could do it slowly, build this by devoting a stream for different elements, maybe highlighting a character, group, weapon, etc. I rather not go into the weeds. I rather again. I mean, I could do that. But back to so the illustrator essentially one time did try a comic, try to send it to Dark Horse, but they never got back to him. But they got back to us. I mean, they never even said anything. So that's a pretty good sign. A pretty damn good sign. All right, and if you want to see more, then I will at least show you some like rough sketches, like essentially, like they're not definitive, so I will show you at least some, like, and essentially you'd have to go to Patreon in order to see like what was the story behind all of these, like, so like weapon, like this is what I call the placer. I call it. And I will show you like this, and we could talk about it, but we have nearly 5 minutes until this live stream is over, so yeah. Yeah. So what do you think? Actually, This is where I tried to differentiate myself from Star Wars, essentially. With how they have blasters and all that. I essentially came up with this Plazer. It's a bit like, but except the difference is, how did you find the artist? Well, honestly, I don't even remember. We were two artists, like Vicious. This one, yeah, that's his name for the first one, and then this other one, it is his name is Devin, and it's Tailored Media Studios. So I think it's good that we can show you who did the art, um, essentially. I think that is, yeah. So essentially, yeah. Wait, Calum, what is his name? How did we found? Like so. I think. Yes. But okay, till we find him, I'll definitely show you who it Tailored Media Studios. Yeah, this is the people who essentially made the the art, the best art, the the one you've seen, the one you're praising me for. This one, uh, essentially this is the art studio that made yeah the definitive look going forward. Yes, we really lucked out with this one. We really, and I mean really, this is the guy who I'm in contact with. This is the guy who illustrated it. Yes, this is the guy. So, and this is the other. Oh yeah. Yeah. So, and yeah. So that is definitely the people that we are relying on to make the story happen. I'm a little bit prideful because I really wish I could have, illustrated myself. Like, essentially, that's what Japanese kind of does. All of this in Attack on Titan was essentially drawn by Hajime himself. They are notorious for having the author illustrating the story instead of someone for them, which I respect the mad hell out of. But I couldn't have the time the nor the resources to essentially make my own. Like, yeah, none of this would have happened if it wasn't your initiative. So it would be, but that didn't stop me from at least trying to. It didn't stop me from trying to draw it myself. So I will. Yeah. So that didn't stop me from like this one and like a lot of this is so I definitely working on my style. I definitely like Hajime Aizama. I definitely have not had a I was definitely a I wasn't terrible. I wasn't but the best with my drawing, but I definitely improved over time. Like, here's one of this is right here. This is what I did of Balto of so essentially I'm not that good with hair. That's why he's bald essentially. So all right. I hope you guys had a great time watching this and anyone who will watch this, I hope you will have a great time. So I hope you will support me on my Patreon and help me essentially get the story to where I want to be the most successful, at least to the point where Bitsy Pop or Smiling Friends or even Attack on Titan. So, yes, I will see you all later, and thank you very much for those who have supported me so far, especially with the SquidBear, what it used to be until now. Like this is my only sense of popularity, like of influence or like help towards my story or help towards my career. This and so I do everything on this channel for the story. All right, thank you. See you guys. Support me on Patreon. Thank you. And